It's wonderful to see all of you this morning here in person as well as online. If this is your first time visiting, you are invited to take a self-guided tour. There's so much to see as the Searching for Shakespeare exhibit on the 1st and 5th floor, the permanent exhibit about DC history on the 4th floor, or the slide in the children's room on the 2nd floor. Just some notes for housekeeping. As you enjoy your visit today to the Dr. Martin Luther King Library, please note that food and drink is only allowed in designated areas in the building. You may eat and drink in the following spaces: the cafe on the 1st floor, the event space on the 5th floor, and on the rooftop. Food anywhere else is prohibited so that we can keep our beautiful space as you see it. The nearest bathrooms are located on the 5th floor as you leave the auditorium on the right, and the 4th floor on both the southwest and southeast side of the building. Now for today's showcase. Today is a part of a series of events throughout the DMV celebrating hip-hop from its most original forms to their most alternative, academic, and exciting evolutions in performance, scholarship, and community. You will witness today during the Remixing the Art of Social Change workshops and panels discussing what hip-hop is and what it could be in the future. To share more about Words, Beats, and Life, please welcome Jamila Sams, the first vice chair of the board for Words, Beats, and Life.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How are we feeling? Good, good. Again, my name is Jamila Sams. I'm the founder of We Do It for the Culture, and I am the proud board chair for Words, Beats, and Life. In 2012, Words, Beats, and Life hosted the first teach-in on the campus of Howard University. All right, let me hear it. All right, I knew it was coming. I'm from LU. Any LU people in here? All right, well, we were the first, so I'm going to represent for all of us. All right, Words, Beats, and Life work in the arts, education, entrepreneurship, and social justice over the past 11 years has been a global impact that just won't stop. So when I say Words, Beats, and Life, my hip-hop's heads already know what I want to hear is still bigger than. Oh, y'all got to come better than that. Words, Beats, and Life is still bigger than. Hop, hip, hop, hip, hop, all right. So a little over a decade later, we are here in the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Library hosting this conference as a part of a 6-day festival along with 14 other events. We wanted to make sure that in the midst of celebrating hip-hop turning 50, good Lord, did that hit some of y'all? Like right here in the chest, it hit me. Hip-hop is turning 50, so that means I am, yeah. So we would like to take the time to reflect on what hip-hop has been and what it could be. Welcome to the Remixing the Art of Social Change. We will spend this day, half of it, plotting, strategizing, and doing the work through hip-hop in order to transform our communities, policies, and approaches. So thank you all for everything that you do for the culture, and let's get ready to come together like Voltron in order to learn, build, and grow. Welcome.
Thank you all so much for joining us for the 7th annual Words, Beats, and Life Festival. And today we're going to talk about remixing the art of social change. This event was developed really to create an in-person experience of an academic journal that we publish, because we found that though the things we were writing were really compelling, lots of folks weren't necessarily reading academic journals. So we wanted to create a space where people could talk to the people that were being published, talk to the people doing the work, to be able to reimagine the kinds of work that they're doing in their own lives and their own communities. I'd like to go and bring our first panel to the stage. My name is Mazi Mutafa, by the way, Executive Director of Words, Beats, and Life. Thank you so much. Can I have Dr. Elliot Gann from Today's Future Sound here from California come and join me on the stage? Can I also get Piper Carter from We Found Hip Hop in Michigan? Let me get one of my mentors and and great friends Martha Diaz from the Hip Hop Education Center in New York. And how about Dr. Msia Clark from Howard University and the Hip Hop Africa podcast. And last but not least, one of the brothers definitely responsible for guiding me, so when you see me make mistakes, feel free to blame him, Mr. Hodari Davis. All right, so we're going to try to make it as interactive as possible. I know personally, I usually come to events like this, sit on the back row, and pick people's arguments apart and wait to raise my hand to tear down arguments. I'm going to try to make more room for that for all of you to be able to engage in conversation earlier than later. Feel free, if at some point you want to respond to a panelist, just raise your hand so I know that you have a question, and when there's a break, I'll come to you, all right? We should have microphones in the space to be able to capture the audio for folks watching online. So just because I know that everyone in the room isn't super familiar with everyone's work, and maybe you didn't do all the research clicking on the bios and links for everybody, if each of you could just introduce yourself. I said who you are and where you're from and the organization you're a part of, but maybe something that has happened in your experience in hip hop over the last 50 years that was a kind of signpost moment. And we call signpost moments points in time that you can point back to that radically changed the direction of your life. So how did hip hop at some point radically change the direction of your life? Why don't we start with whoever's gonna go first? I know that was a tough question.
All right, how's it going, y'all? Good morning. And yeah, it's an honor and privilege to be here. So 2015 was a really big year for me personally and also for my organization, Today's Future Sound. We had 3 different international collaborative projects come together. We're a therapeutic beat-making organization. We believe in hip-hop therapy and hip-hop education and hip-hop diplomacy, and we do all 3 of those. And I had been working on a project with an artist in Peru that I had met through the internet, through a beat I had placed. And it was a 3-year virtual collaboration where our students, our young people, were getting their beats placed in videos being made of B-boys and B-girls, BMX bikers down in South America, especially in Peru. And I also, in that year, got selected to take part in the Next Level program, which is the hip-hop diplomacy program that UNC Chapel Hill does with the U.S. State Department, which sent me to Senegal. And that was my first time in Africa. It was my first time in South America. And I also, through another 3-year kind of collaboration, building towards things, got to go to Australia that year. And that started an annual trip to Australia, which I've done since 2015, annually, minus COVID.
So that's a great backdrop for some of the things that you've done, just because I want to make sure we get through the whole.
Yeah, my bad.
So it's just a point in time, something, an experience that you had that changed the direction of your life.
I think doing all of those things and going international and building with hip hop folks, hip hop heads from around the globe, really reaffirmed the direction I was going, but also was a pretty life-changing experience to be able to do all that. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Piper, how about you? We got to call on people.
Yeah, peace everyone. Piper, pronouns are she and her. I'm here from Wauwatonac, which is the original name of Detroit, Michigan. So I'm 51, so I'm the same age as hip hop. So for me, hip hop is, it is my life. It's been who I've been and how I've identified in the world since birth. So it's difficult to say when did it change my life, because I would say I remember when disco was the thing, and then when first hearing raps, because, I'm Black. I'm from the Black community, so people always rapped, right? There's people always rapping, rhyming. But I would say if me being aware of hip-hop as a thing and it changing my life or transforming my life, I would say being a young person, I grew up between New York City and Detroit. So being a young person, I'll say in New York City and being with my friends we have outdoor parks like at school. And so being at the park at school, and, I was a B girl at the time, which is, dancing, and I used to be able to do the worm. I wouldn't dare try to do that now. But the first time that I was able to do the worm and get, I want to say, probably like around 5 feet off the ground, which was like, and the first time I realized I could do that, to New Edition. I know I'm not naming rap songs, but in my lifetime, this was our hip hop, was like New Edition and stuff like that. So I remember being able to do the worm like this big, and all the fellas, because when you're a young girl, the fellas would be like, you can't do this and you can't do that. And I was always the one that was like, let me show you. And I just remember doing the worm like that high. And I just remember everybody being like, oh, and me being like, yeah. So I would say like that really was transformational for me, because it was, confirmation that this is who I am and this is my culture.
So if there's any dancers in the audience, know you're going to challenge Piper to do the worm before she leaves today. Dr. Clark.
Listen,
I would say for me, it was also as a young girl, I grew up far removed from hip hop in Cleveland, Ohio, where you could only hear hip hop on the radio on Saturday nights. There was a show called Rapper's Delight, and I would record it every Saturday night, and so listen to that tape throughout the week. But it was listening to MC Lights, and then Yo-Yo, like in the Word Up magazines. I don't know if it was Word Up, but it was like this, you could send in a request to be part of the Intelligent Black Women's Coalition, and I sent in my membership card thinking I was gonna like be a member, and I never heard anything, and I was really disappointed, because me as this kind of young Black feminist was like really, felt heard by these strong Black feminist voices, but that's when I like really knew, like, yeah, I was definitely hip hop.
Thank you, Dr. Clark.
My name is Hodari Davis. My story, I remember, I'm 53, so it's my whole life. I can't really remember a time when hip hop wasn't playing at some point. But I remember I was part of a performance ensemble called Young, Gifted, and Black when I was a kid in upstate New York. And we used to walk from school to this place. The ensemble did a lot of speeches by Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, or poetry by Maya Angelou or Mari Evans, or a lot of Black arts movement stuff, a lot of Harlem Renaissance stuff, some contemporary stuff, but never rap. My mom was a director. My mom is 80. So hip hop was foreign to her, But when we would walk from our school to these rehearsals, we would freestyle with my friends, and we would beatbox and freestyle the whole way. And it was the first time I realized we could make hip hop, not just listen to it. It was the first time that I felt like it was embodied in what we were doing, and it was interesting because we were going to a place where we were going to recite poetry and learning how to recite poetry on stage and perform on stage. So there was definitely a relationship. So I never saw hip-hop outside of like Black consciousness or Black power, and I know it's because of that daily walk from school to this place where we're celebrating Amiri Baraka or Langston Hughes. So that's my hip-hop story.
Thank you, Hodari.
Wow. Amazing. Well, chat, hello? Yeah. Well, my mom and dad, my mom did not speak English or listen to disco or anything. She's an immigrant from Colombia. And so when I started listening to hip hop and bringing it home, she was like, what is this? What are you doing? And so I don't know, I didn't have family members, so I gravitated to the community, and hip hop became my family. I would say doing an internship at Yo MTV Raps changed my life. That was it. That was the moment that I entered a new world, and then I started like teaching right away. Like maybe 5 years after I interned and I was just a producer, I started teaching, and I realized the power of hip hop as a transformational tool, and that really helped me understand that I was able to use hip hop to solve problems in the community, and then I became a community organizer, which led me to entering academia. And just entering these new spaces, I was able to gather resources, but also understand how my role as a cultural producer, community organizer could transform my community, and that's what led me to evolving. I'm constantly adding new skills. I just got another degree in archiving just because I know what's missing with hip hop, and I try to solve the problems by just being part of the solution.
Thank you so much, Martha. Hey, let's do it. So one of the things I love to do at the beginning of an event usually is ask people to meet strangers. Because the reality is if you're in a room full of people who you don't know and you're all there for the same reason, you at least have one thing in common. You're interested in something similar. So the question I ask them, I'd love for you to ask and answer to the person sitting next to you. When can you point back to a point in time where hip hop transformed your life? This is an opportunity just to meet a stranger. We're going to take 5 minutes for this. Transformed by hip hop.
They're so expensive. They're like ridiculous. But I was doing the site for Sora, Elliot, $20 glasses, $100 glasses, and they break. So I was like, I need glasses. I have to wear them every day. I need glasses that I'm going to honor. Yep. Right? That I'm going to treat with a different attitude. So yeah, these they come off my face with a case. Yep. You know what I mean? They're like. If I'm even at the gym, I have a case in my gym bag, and they go in my case. Yeah, if I'm laying down, it's just certain things. I try to take them off like this, rather than one hand, certain things. I know, now it just looks so crazy. Yeah, like this, But I had another pair before these, and I guess I wore for 3 years. I was in Africa, I was all over everything. So they kind of broke down. And so I went to get them repaired.
2 more minutes.
I sent them to Germany. I was like, just give me these. Just give me these. You gotta do all that. I've had these for 4 years. I'm in a PhD program now. So I was like, when my program's over, I'm getting ready to have classes. I'm at UC Davis, School of Education. I know. There's so much going on. But I'm thinking this year, that's really for a PhD. Really, in what?
1 last minute. All right, everybody, let's come back together. I want to thank all of you for participating in this activity. Each of you is at least now one relationship richer. And I'm going to open source up. I've only got 2 more questions for the panels, and I'm going to give them to you all so you can think about them. So when you all raise your hands to respond, you can also answer these questions. Because though there's decades of knowledge on this stage, there's hundreds of years of knowledge in this audience. So the questions I'm going to ask them, the next question is about whose work in the United States or around the world currently are you inspired by through hip hop, whether that's an individual artist or an organization or a company. So when you all raise your hand, I'd love to hear different names, different organizations, different companies, so we can all learn about the work of folks that we value. And then the next question is going to be about the future, the next 50 years. What is it that you imagine that hip-hop could do? So I'm giving you all those questions before they answer them so you can think about them, and when you respond, you can answer those questions or just share whatever it is you have to share, all right? So this next question, because all of you have done work throughout the United States, some of you around the world, I'd love to be able to speak into this space the names of people or organizations or companies who you are currently, or just individuals, who you're currently inspired by the work that they're doing, and tell us a little bit about them and the work. Let's start on the opposite side, since Elliot started the first one. Put you on the spot, Martha.
Inspired by the youth of Brave New Voices.
Can you talk into the mic for the people?
The
on
youth
the
of
internet?
Brave New Voices. That would be my first. That would be my first. I spent 15 years with B&V and with Youth Speaks, traveling around the country, hearing these incredible young people. 15 years ago, their voices were trapped in journals, and like my generation, we wrote our poems, but we slid them under our mattress and like told our parents never read this, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Waited for our siblings to come and like read it or something. We didn't have social media back then, so that was our whole social media. So yeah, the youth of Brave New Voices, I've seen them evolve into politicians, into lawyers, into doctors, into scholars, into athletes, into artists, incredible artists on multiple levels. So that would be my first bit, is definitely those young people. And my second would be Mark Bamuthi Joseph. I have to mention Bamuthi because, A, he was my roommate. He was the reason I got into the Youth Speaks Brave New Voices world, and his kind of expansive definition or idea about what hip-hop is and the possibility behind it was infectious. And I feel like it was contagious, so a lot of people caught it. Other people who inspire me, Amir Suleiman. I'm calling out people who are here. Jeff Chang. Jeff Chang is my homie. Like, his son was on my baseball team. We used to sit in bleachers and talk hip-hop. Amir Suleiman, he's like the greatest living poet on earth to me. When I hear his poetry, it makes me want to cry. It makes me come alive. It inspires me to be more a better person, a bigger person. Mazi, you inspire me.
This is a long list, brother.
Your relentlessness. Nah, but it's important, though. I feel like it's important. You said it to name names, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I know you're a person who likes to be in the background, who will be up there on that last row or maybe not even in the room. I know that's you. So I'm going to give you your props. Like, you're an inspiration. You're an inspiration for anybody who's engaged in hip-hop activism, hip-hop education around the world. When I go places, I talk about Mazi. People talk to me about Mazi. I went to Uganda. Babaluku couldn't stop talking about Mazi. Because your work is expansive. It provides multiple angles for people to see themselves and to see the possibilities of hip-hop. And so, yeah, you're my second to last inspiration. My last is my son, my 27-year-old son, who's now on stages rocking the mic, who is at Brave New Voices, who is a poet laureate in Oakland. I see like a new generation of hip hop in him, and I watch him manifest it almost like, it's weird now. I feel like a hip hop parent, not so much a hip hop kid, So you grow up all this time and then you see your own child do it, and it just changes your relationship to the thing. So that would be my last. Your turn.
Yes. Well, that's a good segue, because I am also proud of my daughters who are now working at the Universal Hip Hop Museum. They're working with Paradise Gray on his collection in Pittsburgh, and so it's really fulfilling to see that. So I guess I would begin, and there's many sectors and fields, but I'll just stick to one: education. I love what the High School for Recording Arts did in Minnesota, to develop an entire hip-hop high school and to see that model replicated around the country, whether it's View Park or Brooklyn Community and Arts High School, they're popping up all over. And now we're having charter networks with hip-hop. So that's really exciting. I would say what the hip-hop scholars are doing, Dr. Clark, and so many others, Bettina Love, Christopher Emden, just so many, Joan Morgan, we can go on and on. We are infiltrating, we have infiltrated. We're not infiltrated. We've infiltrated hip-hop in the academy, or the academy with hip-hop, and we're developing our own departments, our own majors, our own minors, our own degrees. There's a hip-hop and R&B Bachelor in Science at Loyola University. We're seeing major changes in academia. And then I would say, the Next Level program is next level, right? It's like, okay, how do we take this work around the world? And with the State Department, we are sending people to different parts of the world. And of course, shout out to Tony Blackman for being the first hip hop ambassador, right? And, I remember her war stories was like, they're sending me to the worst place, Afghanistan, where there's bombs. And, it's a dangerous position, a dangerous role to take, but we're the peacekeepers. We're the ones giving people hope around the world. And so that is a game changer for all of us, humanity. And so I'll stop there so that we can continue for the future.
Thanks, Martha.
I'll also kind of acknowledge some folks who are also in the room. I don't know. I know she doesn't remember Martha Diaz. The first time I actually met you, I think it was in Maryland, University of Maryland. It was some panel on hip hop and education, and it was a book you had, a workbook on hip hop and education. And I wanted. You had only a few copies left, and I wanted a copy. And you basically were like, well, who are you? And it was kind of like I'm not, these are precious. And I don't know what I said, but I lied. It kind of made myself seem a lot more influential than I was. And I still have it. I should have brought it with me, but so I was able to get a copy of it. And I kept it, and so now that I'm actually teaching and teaching classes on hip hop, I still have that book. So yeah, I still remember that. So that was definitely a huge influence. Anybody who ever kind of wrote anything dealing with hip hop, this is the joint, the first edition, a huge book, kind of read through every chapter in that. Bakari Kitwana, Jeff Chang, there's so many people. Imani Perry, there were just so many people, especially a lot of the stuff kind of dealing with women in hip hop. I know, a lot of my stuff is kind of really dealt with what's happening in Africa. So, a lot of the stuff, especially in South Africa, Heal the Hood in Cape Town, they're just doing amazing stuff. The Yanamar movement in Senegal, just what they've been able to do over there. Stuff happening in Uganda. The breakdancers in Uganda are doing some amazing things. So really kind of looking, I think Chuck D once, tweeted a couple years ago about kind of what's happening with hip hop in Africa. That's been really an inspiration, especially looking at African women's voices, really kind of speaking up and challenging patriarchy and sexism. And then also kind of looking at what's happening in the UK. With hip hop and black women in the UK, and like Little Sims and Annie and Shabo, and I'm like, damn. It's just like every time I listen to these, voices, and then of course Sampa the Great is just like kicking ass everywhere. So I'm really inspired when I hear these MCs. They really kind of are the fuel for a lot of us. When we are wanting to do anything, that's who I'm putting on. Or like I turned on Bel Air, the show, and heard Sampa the Great, and I'm like, I was very excited about that. So so I'm definitely getting influences from a lot of different corners of the world.
Thanks so much, Dr. Clark. I said thanks so much.
I'm inspired by everybody everywhere. So every everything that's been named so far, I'm like, yeah, you took mine. And you took my other one, and my other one. No, but yeah, definitely the Ugandan, like, b-boy, culture, all the women in hip-hop, culture stuff, especially since I focus on women in hip-hop. But I want to shout out the ladies of hip-hop. I don't know if y'all ever have experienced any of their B-girl, cultural experiences, but it's just really amazing what they're doing. And, they celebrate all elements, but I just really love, I'm inspired by them a lot because I love to watch battles, and I'm like a battle watcher. Like, I watch all types of battles all the time, and I just love how they just like really keep creating and innovating in dance. That's really inspiring to me. I'll also say, yeah, a lot of the, like Tony Blackman, I went to Howard with Tony Blackman. And so just seeing how it's inspirational to me, the way, like that you named, how she actually created a whole career for herself, because that wasn't a thing, right? Like, she created, she was like, and that's very hip hop, to be like about to create myself. And so, and then, she was bringing us the stories back, right? So, travel now, since COVID, like, everybody can go everywhere. But at a time when she was going, travel was very expensive and very inaccessible, especially international travel. And so being able to travel internationally and then share what was going on, right, in other spaces, for us to want to care, right? Because being an internationalist, is really important to me, what's happening to Black people and brown people, all other places, and that they're using hip hop. It was like, okay, yeah, this is my jam. And then, yeah, maybe I can, I want to say Mazi too. I don't know about y'all, but Mazi pops up on my feed. You know how like they when, all the things like Love and Hip Hop does not pop up on my thing, Mazi does, right? Like Mazi, every time I open up my Instagram, it's like I see something, right? Like, and that's really inspirational to me because, again, it's been named how many ways in which you have been exploring hip hop and keeping hip hop not only alive, but like just expanding, what hip hop is. And then just where do I see hip hop going in the future?
Oh, that's the next question.
That's the side. Okay.
Yes.
Put a period there.
Okay, we'll come back to you first.
Yeah, not pass it.
Thank you, Piper.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what a bunch of folks said. I think Mazi he's a Jedi. He's incredible in what he does and has done in advocating for hip-hop and making things like this happen. Hodari, being in Oakland, I mean, I always look to you as well. And, seeing like 9, 10, 11-year-old kids rip the mic, Young, Gifted, and Black. I mean, incredible. When one of my colleagues came from Senegal, who I met through the Next Level program, took him to Young, Gifted, and Black, and all around Oakland and the Bay Area to different nonprofits. And so I've always looked to you, and what you've done has been amazing. Martha is a hero of mine, and I'm glad to call her a friend and a colleague. I also invited someone that I think everyone should know about, who's in the room. Jackie Johnson came here from Philly. She runs Sankofa Healing Studio in Philly. It's an integrated healing clinic. She does incredible things with treating trauma in a very holistic and integrated way. I think the clinic that she's designed, which is very holistic and multidimensional, myself and my colleague J.C. Hall, who's a hip hop therapist that everyone should know about too, consulted on like the hip hop therapy studio, but she's also got sound baths and yoga, a video game, food, etc., and is also doing psychotherapy, EMDR in color, adapting EMDR, which is one of the most current and most effective treatments for trauma, but for Black folks and folks of color, and training folks constantly. She's doing a training like every other weekend for folks, and she's a Jedi too, so check her out for sure. Dr. Raphael Travis, who's the author of The Healing Power of Hip Hop. He's kind of like Mazi, like sitting in the back, and he's not trying to be in the spotlight. But what his research and his practice is incredible. The research that he's done on hip hop therapy and that we've done on therapeutic beat making has been really, I think, important and impactful. And the research that he does is pushing the field forward. Jeff Chang, another hero of mine. So shouts to Jeff. And then internationally, there's so many people doing amazing work. I heard y'all mention, Emil YX and Heal the Hood in Cape Town in South Africa doing astounding work. I was lucky enough to go there for 2 weeks and work with them and see like an incredible nonprofit really working in the community, really being in schools, really helping young folks to empower themselves. I do a lot of work in Australia, and there's folks doing amazing work there too, using hip hop in juvenile detention settings, in community settings, in school settings, working with indigenous folks, and a guy named Scott Griffiths, who goes by the MC name Optimus, with a U. I want to shout him out. He's doing, and has been doing for many years, work in the prisons, both with young people and also in adult prisons, and really trying to, and working with indigenous hip hop artists over there. Dr. Alexander Crook at University of Melbourne as well. We did a symposium with 5 indigenous hip hop artists there, and it was amazing to hear their story and their narrative and how important and impactful hip hop was for them as young people and their identity development. And and in Chile, I want to give a shout out to Nuble Urbano and a young gentleman, a good friend of mine named Procnus, who does incredible work. Just seeing him on a Saturday leading a rap workshop and talking about all the different kinds of subgenres of rap and hip hop, and we got to collaborate with him in Chile and teach beat making there. Also did some work in Mexico with him as well. So there's people all over the globe doing really incredible stuff. So shouts to everyone doing the work. Appreciate it.
So I want to, we can get those snaps. So I've been looking up in the audience, trying to see if anybody had a comment. No one's raised their hand, so I just want to throw the last question to the audience first, which is this question about hip-hop's future and what it is you see. We've talked a little bit about the past in terms of the folks on the stage and what they've experienced. We've talked a little bit about the present in terms of things that are motivating and inspiring them. But this panel is really about the next 50 years. And we wanted to start off Remixing Art of Social Change with this panel because most of the talk about hip-hop turning 50 is about its past. The overwhelming majority of the discussions and celebrations, rightly so, because lots of pioneers didn't get their shine, and so this is an opportunity to give them shine. But at the same time, while this spotlight's on hip-hop, we have to be having conversations about its future. And its future in the form of the young people that are being worked with, its future in terms of the kinds of institutions we think would actually advance the things that are the values or the priorities of our communities. So I want to ask the audience, if you want to answer the first 2 questions, you can, but I'd love to ask the audience if there are people in the room who have ideas about the things that hip-hop should be as we move forward that you'd want to share with this group of people who could be inspired or motivated by the thing that you shared. Would anybody like to, so do we have microphones? Mm-hmm. So we've got a comment down here on the first row. Yeah, let's make it easy.
How's everyone doing? All right, this is hip hop. How's everyone doing? All right, I go by the name of the Great Deity Da. I mean, 27 years ago, I used to run these streets, would be with Tony Blackman, Freestyle Union out there at the 8 Rock and battling MCs while I was a student at Howard. I think that the future of the culture has to merge technology at a young age to the kids. The culture is used to make everything else sticky, but we have no ownership. So you would get TikTok to get dances, but you're not teaching kids how they could work at TikTok. So people in the community that create the culture are not being part of the economic empowerment that the culture generates. So I'm working with Martha on some great work at the Warhol, working with Howard, where we actually, as an alum that got there, won an engineering competition at 18, is using hip-hop culture in creative technologies. For our universities, we need to, especially for historical black colleges, we need to be able to bring creative technologies to be democratized so that people that are creating the culture, just like you got a beat machine, you should be able to make interactive art. You should be able to make your avatar, but not be on somebody's platform. Be on your own. So that's what I think about it. And that's the work we're doing and work I'm doing with Martha. But I'm like really with chills being out here. Peace to everyone.
Thank you, great deity Doc. We've got Kosi in the front. Anybody? Okay.
Peace, y'all. I just wanted to respond to that idea because it's something that hi y'all, Kosi here, former Academy intern, person about town. I'm currently in Parsons transdisciplinary design program in New York. We talk about creative uses of technology every single day, and we talk about these really interesting new media exhibits that are made possible by coltan mining, slave labor, and we're having these discursive conversations about the potential for all of these art forms and the ways that we can get technological capital, which is super tight, really like Afrofuturism and whatnot, but it's like, I don't want to replicate the same like exploitative matrices that like have made this past 20 years possible, right? Like, my phone is not designed for my body, right? Like, most technology doesn't care about me, right? It wants to transform my practice into something that is fungible, right? And so I like using hip hop in this space because fundamentally the first technology was language, right? And hip hop is a design lens that explores uses of technology that allow us to be with each other more presently, more sincerely, more intimately. And so we can actually kind of unlearn some of the addictive qualities of tech, right? And start to think about like more abstract, more expansively about what is a technology, right? It is something that helps humans do human things, right? And so we can have a conversation of what those human things are. And I think hip hop, poetry, right? Manipulating language and technology is a lens that we could attack anything with, right? And so I think the rigidity of the 5 elements, right? Let's create a periodic table, right? Anyway, I'm ranting. Sorry.
That's a perfect thank you so much for that, Kosi. We've got a comment in the back, and then we'll come here.
Yeah, how's everybody doing? My name's Roger, DC native. I think something that's really been inspiring to me lately in hip hop has been instrumentals, kind of the blank slate of the music without whoever's narrative kind of smeared all over it. I think there's in recent years, I mean, there's kind of negative sides to the messaging in some lanes, but getting kind of the raw instrumentals delivered without somebody else's messaging has really like kind of fueled me to whether I'm not a rapper or anything, but I'll just hear it and okay, like this is kind of how I'm feeling in the day. I'll put a couple bars over it or whatever, or just like ride to those instrumentals. And I guess on the other side, seeing house DJs use hip hop and kind of evolve what we've loved for years, or even newer songs, and reformat that has been really enjoyable, and it kind of speaks to the futurism, or just kind of hearing it in a different way than we're used to. So that's my answer.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Hey, I'm Michael Robbins with Learning Pathmakers here in DC. I want to build on a couple comments here. And just pose a question, a thought here. We are seeing a remixing revolution unfold before our eyes with what's called generative AI, right? These tools like Midjourney, DALL-E, ChatGPT, right? But there is no I in ChatGPT, okay? There's no we in Midjourney, right? This is stuff that's scraped without our permission. They take our stories and then they call them their own. And, hip-hop's got a long history of sampling, remixing. That's part of what this culture is, but it's also about respecting where the stories come from. And there's some technology that's emerging that's going to allow us to take control of our data. But what is our data, right? Our data is our stories. That's the thing, like there's no machine that can tell my story. Only I can tell my story. And so I think for us, I mean, there's some real opportunities to look at hip hop as a way to secure our stories and, in fact, take charge of this AI in a way that's not happening in society.
Back in the back.
Hello? All right, what's up, guys? My name is Ayo. I'm a music photographer, and I actually want to ask about the AI stuff from you guys. Do you guys have any fears or foresee any dangers that can come from, like, the AI verses they're doing now? They have, like, fake Kanye verses, fake Kendrick verses. They're doing over different beats. And I happen to be a senior cloud engineer, so I know a little bit about the technology, and I'm not all the way against it. So I can see, like, a future people using. I've heard, like, the Uzi, the new song is an AI beat, and I'm like, is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Like, how do you guys feel about this?
We'll come back to the panel in a second. We've got here in the front, and then we've got one more question down here, and then back there.
Peace, everyone. Peace. My name is Manny Faces. Hi, everyone. My idea for hip-hop in the future, first is that we get to a point where when hip-hop is mentioned, the default isn't music. That everyone must understand that it's a culture and it's wider than just music. Right now, when people say hip-hop, that's the default. It's usually music. So I'd love to see society in general get to a place where it's as known as we know it here in this room. The second thing, to the questions about AI and a lot of these things, you know, when you talk about artificial intelligence or facial recognition technology, these are all being programmed and designed by folks who are not necessarily representative of everyone. So again, in the fact that hip-hop needs to be in everything, right? There needs to be hip-hop heads or folks that have that, come from that lifestyle, that ethos, whatever you want to term it, but have that hip-hop sensibilities in all of these areas so that they make sure, because nothing's more representative of the people than hip-hop culture, of all the people, inclusivity and all that. So I'd love to see more people, more hip-hop in everything, from what we're doing here, talking about academia, talking about mental health therapy, but to municipalities and government and technology and everything. And everything will be better for it. So that's my hope for hip-hop in the future, is that hip-hop is the future, everywhere. Oh, can I shout out one thing? Thank you. Hip-hop Youth Research, what is it? Hip-Hop Youth Research and Activism Conference. Dr. Lauren Kelly at Rutgers University. It's happening. It happens every year. It's a great program. I just want to shout them out as someone who inspires me. I'm part of that program. Mikhail's part of that program. And they're super dope, and I just want to shout them out.
Thanks, Manny.
Yeah.
Stan.
Peace, everybody. Peace. Part of where I see it going, just as a hip-hop educator and hip-hop artist, just looking at this new generation and the access to information that we have. There's a lot of problems, obviously, with from the technology to how different IPs are being exploited in ways that I think it was a good idea, I think, when we were just sampling things, but now we're seeing where it's going, and it's kind of scary at this point. But I feel like talking with young people, they are so much more informed than we were, right? When we were coming up, in terms of being able, like, you know, so I look at my role as an educator and trying to help guide hip hop's future is just helping them learn how to ask the right questions. And what I'm seeing is that, you know, when we talk about contracts, when we talk about, like, this technology, when we talk about these different things, you know, taking it through the lens of hip hop and presenting it in a way where it makes them excited about the possibilities of this new information they have and how they can empower themselves in the next generation. So just trying to have more conversations, as the brother was saying before, about hip hop in these different spaces, right? And learning how to engage in these conversations and understanding that it's more than just the music. So I definitely wanted to piggyback on what he's saying, you know, because I think we're trying. I see efforts as well as trying to bring the generations together, because that's a large part of the problem. This separation that we're seeing in the industry a lot of times, where older artists are deliberately like separated from younger artists, so certain conversations don't happen, certain education, you know, certain guidance can't happen in these situations, because executives oftentimes are trying to steer the younger artists in a different direction and make them feel like these older artists are irrelevant. So that kind of leads to the miseducation and perpetuates certain issues. So just seeing this younger generation actively reach out to the elders, you know, the folks like myself and so many folks on this stage, and engage in these conversations and trying to better themselves and trying to take it in new directions is exciting for me. So I'm, when I think of hip hop's future, I'm extremely hopeful in spite of the not so great news we get every day. But yeah, that's more like my 5 cents than 2.
So we got 2 last responses before I bring the question back to the panel. In the back?
Oh, me?
Yep.
Cool. I just want to preface by saying it's not my idea. One of the things that I remember watching clips of a Nori interview, and he talked about a hip-hop union. And I think in the light of deaths like Black Rob and Scarface and all these people who died, I wouldn't say prematurely, but they had certain issues. I'm wondering and I'm hoping that at some point we create a mechanism in which we are taking care of not only the artists who are, struggling or whatever, but also some of the dancers. I have a colleague who created it's called, I forget the name of the organization that she created. But anyway, she's a former hip hop dancer. She's created this mechanism to make sure that dancers are getting paid their worth. So I think as much as we talk about technology and all that's all great and stuff, I think we need to start thinking about the social implications, social and political implications and impact as far as hip hop as a I guess culture and mechanism for social welfare for the entire community.
Thank you so much. Queena, you're our last comment.
All right, blessings. Hi, everyone. My name is Queena. So I'm here as a 2040 fellow with WBL, so I just wanted to come up. Oh, thanks. I just wanted to say this just because obviously we've spent the last 10 months talking about the vision of hip hop, and I think very much I don't understand anything about AI. I don't have a ton of Bitcoin or any of those NFTs or anything like that. But I think very much like hip hop, when new things happen, they're scary and misunderstood by people. And I would hope that the vision of hip hop, these next few decades, we kind of just find a space and an open mind to kind of see what this new world is going to look like. Because just like hip hop, it started off really small and took over the world. It's now popular culture. It's the one thing that we send out to the world. And I think the same thing is going to happen when it comes to technology. So I hope that these next 50 years is about an open mind and accepting and understanding what creativity looks like in the future.
Thanks so much, Queen. So I'm bringing this question back to the panel, and unfortunately I got to change it just a little bit, just because I think that they gave a lot of your answers, to be honest. But I wonder, we're so grateful to be here today at the Martin Luther King Jr. Library here in Washington, D.C., here in this beautiful auditorium, hosting this gathering. But I think that one of the challenges for hip hop is to build institutions, to build our own spaces, not even necessarily to create something that's separate, but to create something that can be consistent, something that literally creates jobs, not just opportunities. And I was inspired. I listen to C-SPAN a lot, and I was listening to a talk at a historical society of the Supreme Court. Did anybody know that there was a historical society of the Supreme Court? No. Did you know there are regional chapters or regional sections of this society? So literally they've broken the country up into groups of people who care so much about the Supreme Court that they're willing to gather and write and talk with the justices regularly, right? And I was like, is there a historical society in hip hop? I know lots of organizations, I know lots of people teach them, but are there, and it's not just about replicating what is, but it's about thinking about what kind of systems produce what kind of things. So to Kosi's point around, it's beautiful the way we talk about technology and innovation, but not necessarily spending a lot of time talking about the exploitative nature of what made that possible. So as we think about hip-hop's future and what it is prepared to be critical of and what it's prepared to build, I wonder what each of you think should be a part of hip-hop's next 50. If you could literally wave a magic wand, Hodari, I know that the future is very far away, even though it's tomorrow. What are the things that you wish that you would wish for hip-hop, for the hip-hop community and culture as we move forward?
I don't have a rosy view like that.
No doubt.
I don't have a view like that. I don't see it like that. I resonate a lot with what Kosi was talking about. I think that hip hop is a technology in and of itself. It's a technology that that does incredible work around the world. It manifests in different ways, but it's a technology. So yeah, what do I expect is, what do I like anticipate is different than what do I want, right? So what I anticipate is getting on an elevator in a major building and hearing like a remix of Kanye played back to me Kenny G style as I'm going to the top floor. That's what I anticipate, right? That's what I anticipate, right? I anticipate,
That's wild.
yeah. Like when we were kids, though, James Brown was playing on the elevator. It was just Kenny G playing it. So it's not much different than what already happened. I think that it's hard to remix a digital track that was your grandmother's, and you're gonna like turn it into a new song. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a different era. I see the emergence of a new cultural form, new artistic ways of expression that are definitely tied to hip hop, but not bound to them or restricted by 5 elements. Yeah, I see a continuing evolution of black culture, and that hip hop is part of that, but it's not all of that. There's so many other areas that hip hop has inspired or informed, but it doesn't mean that those things are hip hop. So for example, these kids in Tennessee, y'all know what's happening in Tennessee right now. If you're not aware, the kids of Tennessee, ever since that Nashville shooting, have been banging on the Capitol. They took over the floor. They enlisted 3 representatives to support them, 3 state senators to support their protest, and 2 of those state senators were then kicked out of the legislature, and they both happen to be young black men. This, I see, is part of the future of hip hop, right? I see that we're taking this aggression, this ownership of our own voices, this affirmation of our own possibility beyond the stage. I see us taking it to state houses. I see us taking it to the White House, to Congress. I see a new generation of Congress people who are hip hop informed, whose lives were in some way impacted by their relationship to hip hop. I see a new generation of technologists who are going to be more mindful of the relationship between these things and our bodies. But I also see like floods and storms and hurricanes. Like I can't look at this future of AI and not acknowledge that the hurricanes are getting worse, that there's countries that are being buried by water. So I see hip hop with a responsibility that exists beyond the stage and beyond some of the entertainment platforms that we promote, that we feel, that we vibe with. I think hip hop has to mature to a point where we're banging on these crusty dudes. Like hip hop has to evolve to a point where we're challenging senators. Now, what I like about this new generation of kids is that they don't have fear like that. They're not afraid. They're ready to go at Mitch McConnell. They're ready to go at Joe Biden, you know? And I think that's important. I think that we need generational representation. I think that the multi-generational, intergenerational conversation, that future that we're talking about, needs to be led by young people. Like these crusty politicians are trying to write the future into existence, right? You ban a book so this child doesn't read it, so that it replicates the realities that they're comfortable with when they grow up as adults. We need to be getting them these books. We need to be informing these children. So I guess my last piece that I'll say is that the future is alive. Like the future lives. It's not like some distant thing. These babies that are 5 are gonna be 15 in 10 years. This 50 years, they're gonna be 55. They're the next gen. So if we wanna invest in the future, we gotta get with the babies. Now, the teens are great. I love the teens. We got to get with the babies. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, 100%.
Those first graders, those second graders, those third graders, like we've got to be part of literacy development, and not just how to read words, but how to read the world, right? And then not just how to write words, but how to write the world. that they want to see. That's my piece.
Oh man, this is tough because I also see a bleak future. You know, it's we have a water crisis, we have a food crisis, our economic system is about to crash. These are reality, real issues that are going to affect us regardless of what music is playing, right? And so how do we take everything that we spoke about and bring it, you know, manifest something new? And I would say that hip-hop has to be seen as a culture, like Manny said, which is number one. Like, it's not just rap, right? It's all the elements. I mean, breaking is going to the Olympics. It's going to be a category next year. In Paris. Look how far we've come. That is beautiful. But what can we do? Is it going to be exploited, right? Is it going to be like, oh, you know, it's just a dance or a sport, which for us is a dance, but they're looking at it as a sport? How can we work with the Olympic Committee to say, we need workshops on hip-hop history, you can't just use hip-hop? Like, how do we use our power to change things? The baby boomers, they're dying. We are next. As a matter of fact, we are in charge now. We are in charge now, right? So how are these artists using their money, which is really the challenge for hip-hop? How are we using our power? Right? So the future of hip hop is what is going to happen next week with Mazi and what we're doing with the Association of Black Foundation Executives. We're presenting for the first time a program within their conference to talk about hip hop and philanthropy. And you know what? I'm going to say, yeah, Common has a foundation, and so does Jay-Z, and so does MC Light, and so but you know what? We're the ones doing the work. You need to fund us. And we're gonna give it to them. Hard. We only have one chance, 150th anniversary, and this is our moment. So entering new spaces where we can say, you know, thank you for your game. We got our own game. Thank you for your AI. We got our own AI. Abraham Maldonado, he's working on something for us. We have the power to create our own schools, our own banks. Right. Greenwood, you know, Killer Mike is doing what he's doing down in Georgia. Amazing. So women, especially, are going to play a critical role in the evolution of hip-hop. And that is going to be evident real soon, if it's not already, right? We really are going to change things. And like Maria Isa in Minnesota, she's a councilwoman now, MC and councilwoman. We're gonna see more of that. We've been in these spaces, but how do we really change the conversation, right? How do we introduce young people who we've been teaching since they're 5 years old? How do we bring them on stage and say, okay, you ready? Because you're next. And so I think that is, it's just our mindset. We got to shift it. We got to shift more than anything. And we need to deal with some big problems in our community. What's happening with Africa Bambaataa is not being talked about. What happened with Russell Simmons is not being talked about. We have to address these ugly issues. It's part of us. I love my godfather, hip-hop, you know, of hip-hop, Africa Bambaataa, but he did some things that are not inappropriate. And you know what? Hurt people hurt people. So how do we deal with him delicately, right, and embrace him while we talk about something terrible, you know? And so more town hall meetings, more conversations, and more entrepreneurship. The last time I talked, I said we need more institutions. Well, that means we need to learn business. Yes. Okay, I'll end it here.
So, unfortunately, let's give Martha a round. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm always stepping on the applause, but the other thing about being the moderator is that you also have to pay attention to the time. So unfortunately, we've actually reached the time for this panel. However, I believe our panelists are going to be here. We're about to take a 10-minute break between this panel and the next, so feel free to come off stage and talk to folks. It's time, because we always go over time, every single time we do this, every single time. So can we get a round of applause for the panel? So feel free to get up and stretch if you'd like. We're going to take a quick 9-minute break before the rap laureate presentation.